Welcome to the Small Business Sessions podcast from Enterprise Nation's Business Connected training program and our partners Vodafone Business, Constant Contact, Dropbox and JP Morgan. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Jake Bucknall, co-founder of pizza business Dinner for 100. Chef Jake started the company in South London in 2020 with his former tour guide friend Jacob as a dinner for 100 people. But then lockdown hit, so they decided to sell pizzas outside Jacob's mum's house. The popularity was so great they ran out of space and moved to a pop-up site. That has now been developed into a permanent pizzeria alongside another bar, selling pizzas in a central London pub and running 4 events a month. In the show, Jake discusses the inspiring story behind his mission to bring people together through food and his tips for business success. So Jake, big thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you. I'd usually shake a hand, but I don't know if that's inappropriate.
We can't quite. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I'm just used to shaking hands with people coming in the restaurant and whatnot.
But, of course, proper restaurateur.
Yeah.
So speaking of your business, so Dinner for 100. Take me back. How I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly where your business started, but where would you say it all began?
So we were laughing about this earlier, because it is a bit of a mess when I look back. Not at Dinner for 100, obviously, but in the journey to kind of how I've come to something now that feels very clear, and I'm very passionate about running every day. But I would say, for the sake of clarity, I'm not going to get into my sad childhood story. I'm going to crack on with what really kicked it off, which was the pandemic. So essentially, January 2020, similar to what we were talking about with you, actually, I quit my job as a pizza chef. Jacob was a London bus tour guide. And suddenly, February, pandemic starting to hit. And by March, I've got nothing to do, essentially. And we'd been doing these dinners for 100 people. And just because we both used to run events in university and we both kind of had this yearning to do something, no job could quite really kind of give us the vigor and the kind of zest for life that we needed. And so we were doing these dinners. Anyway, it was going well. Pandemic happened. And we just thought, you know what? Let's keep this momentum. We've got to do something. There's no London bus tour guys going, I don't have a job. So we started selling pizza, and we were looking for venues. And the first venue we thought was, how about we do it outside Jacob's mum's garden? Quite confusing, Jacob and Jake. Even I get confused. So we started selling pizzas outside his mum's garden, and kind of, we got washed away. We just suddenly found ourselves with a business that we really enjoyed running. And 8 weeks later, we got given a permanent spot outside a cafe up the road, which is now been built into a pizzeria. And we have another pizzeria / bar in Nunhead, and we've got a permanent residency in Bloomsbury. And we're continuing to do the dinners because we never changed our name. So,
you've got to keep doing those dinners. We've got to keep doing it.
Yeah. But I think we always thought when we started doing the pizzerias, I remember I'd worked in pizzerias since I was 18, and there were so many around, and it was like, okay, what's the difference? Are we going to focus on a new style, or are we going to kind of really hone in on the brand and what it means to come into our spaces? And I think we chose that latter option because of the events that we love to do. We love to bring people together. So although we were setting up a pizzeria, a big part of it was just focusing on what is Dinner for 100 kind of conceptually. And so that's been a big part of our journey.
That's amazing. And it's quite interesting, isn't it? The pandemic, obviously it was awful time, but there's so many businesses and so much entrepreneurialness happened, didn't it? Yeah. So what was it like? So take me back to that. You just set up outside the mum's house. And what did you Sheila? So Sheila's house. What did you do? Just wait for people to come? Like what kind of marketing were you doing? I mean, people were kind of on walks and out and about, weren't they, looking for stuff to do, I suppose.
Well, I guess me and Jacob, we're definitely not from the gritty mean streets, but we are hustlers by nature. we did put on events, and part of that was we got to make sure it sells out. You know, when I did events at uni, I'd go around the library and literally watch someone until they bought the ticket, because I wanted to make sure that was sold out. So it was no different when we set up a pizzeria outside his mum's front garden. We went on all the local Facebook groups telling everyone to book in their slot. It's the most interesting thing you're going to do with your day. Otherwise, you're just stuck at home, or you're going to Sainsbury's with a mask, like bloody ear mask, everything, you know. So yeah, we really pushed for people to come, and I think, you know, people were just interested to see a bit of positivity coming on what was, you know, quite a dark time, because we didn't know how long it was going to last, or like how bad it was going to be. So, you know, people responded to it, but we also really pushed people to come. And the way we did it is we did it every Friday night. I had 80 pizzas ready. And essentially we made sure every ball of dough was sold out, and there was no room for mistakes, which was a bit stupid, but it was just the amount of pressure we needed to make sure we did a good job. Right. So Jake was out the front, literally by the gate, telling people to come in. Jake's just making a pizza. I was in a bush, basically, just whipping up some pizza in a small kind of Gosney rock box. And yeah, we just made it work. And it was really fun, to be honest. It was really fun.
Yeah. So you said you got that space, which has now become your like permanent pizzeria.
Yeah.
So do you want pizzerias? Do you want to tell me the story of how you got to that point? And now you're running an actual physical restaurant, which
restaurant,
which adds even more challenges.
It's bricks and mortar, as they say. And to be honest, when we opened that was when it was like lots of people started to take us a lot more seriously, I guess, because the story of our original site is really a story of DIY and just making it happen. So essentially, it was outside this cafe where we'd done a couple of dinners, so we knew the lady that ran it, and it's basically literally just a strip of AstroTurf, okay? And then like a kind of concrete square room that used to be an electricity generator. Right. So essentially it's a concrete cube, you open a door and there was just nothing in there. Ugh. That was used as a storage room for a guy that you would sometimes do dinners at the cafe. He wasn't doing them anymore. So Jackie from the Hill Station, thank you, Jackie, basically said, look, you can lease this space, the AstroTurf outside and the room inside. You know, we'll just go month by month. And basically over time, it went really well. We had a pizza oven that we'd hire. We put some, you know, tables, and we had basically like a tent. I don't know what the correct word is, but it would always fly away, but it would cover us if it rained. So yeah, we had that. It was a bit of a scrappy operation. Then eventually it was permanent. And so when it was permanent, we basically did the inside of this former electricity generator, turned it into a prep kitchen. The outside, we built like a wooden structure like that. Got an oven in from Bulgaria, from a Welsh guy on Facebook. And essentially just started building it. And even, you know, a year ago, we've just put tiles in with one of our Algerian chefs who used to be a builder. So it's really a story of like slowly building it, adding it. And just to stop myself rambling about it too much, but just to sign off on that one, we did actually have someone from Lewisham Council come, I think a year ago, looking for meter readings because it was still on the map as an electricity generator space. Right. So I just want to, I guess, just to finally finish it off, it's properly like, you know, you go around looking for bricks and mortar, but there's space out there. If you speak to the right people, you might make something really interesting happen. So, yeah, it might be our first and there might be a brick and mortar after that, but it's got to be the most special spot. Yeah. Because of just the nature of the fact that it was something so random. Yeah. And now look at what it is. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so much space that could be used. You know, think outside the box. You literally had that box. You went inside the box. We thought inside the box. Exactly. So how were you funding that then? Was it pure organic making sales? You were then able to buy the oven. You know, you're now able to do the tiling. Was it that kind of organic? Or what point? But I know you did crowdfunding, didn't you? So at what point did that come? Crowdfunding happened about 2 years in. So crowdfunding happened 3 years in. So before that, it was all basically sell the pizzas, pay the staff, whatever's left for us, saved that for the business. You know, we both moved back in with our parents for the first year. Eventually paid ourselves a very, you know, the lowest amount of 12.5 grand after about, I'd say 6 months, which, to be fair, at the time we were pretty happy with that because we were like, well, obviously you don't make money for years, you know. So that was how it worked. There was no loans. There was just sell the pizza, get it done. The only bit of equipment that cost that we originally already had was the small rock box pizza oven that I just happened to buy the summer before. I don't know why I bought it. I spent every day working as a pizza chef. I don't know why I wanted to come home and cook more pizza, but
it was meant to be.
I think subconsciously I was like, you know what, you know, in a couple of years I'm going to have a pizzeria. So, you know, just did it.
So you said now you've got a more traditional bricks and mortar. Yeah. It's a bar, isn't it? And
so here's a little bit of kind of my biggest area in Dinner for 100 since I've now like kind of handed down the reins of being head chef to Rahman, our head chef of all sites, and just kind of doing that a little bit less is the marketing. And the reason it's called the bar is because not only was it our first brick and mortar, but it was our first time selling drinks. And we were figuring out what to call it. Do we just call it Dinner for 102? Do we call it Rahman's dining place? Do we call it Jake and Jake's Pizzeria? You know, all of those options. And I think because it was our first time selling drinks, we were like, that's kind of what we want people to think of straight away in their head when they come or they hear about it. So we put bar as the first thing. Bar, D100. Short term for Dinner for 100, of course. But yeah, so essentially it's not a bar, but it kind of is.
Right.
It's a kind of a restaurant, but then, you know, then what we just say to finish it off is, look, it's a bit of a bar, it's a bit of a restaurant, but really it's just a Dinner for 100. And that's what we really try and channel, is just to not try and think of things too, you know, in a box, to continue the theme. So yeah. So
to get a kind of physical traditional bricks and mortar place is a dream of a lot of entrepreneurs, obviously particularly in the food space. So how did you go about doing that, getting that space, and what advice would you give to other foodie or other maybe retail entrepreneurs looking for kind of a physical space?
Well, I guess like we kind of knew the area really well. We'd built up a customer base there. So it was like quite an easy next step. It just depends what stage of the journey you're at. So I guess my advice would be, if you're just starting, start with a pop-up. Don't get a brick and mortar until you know the area, until you know the customers, until you've made a bit of a name for yourself. You know, because the way we did it is we started outside Jacob's mum's house, then we got the pop-up, the cafe up the road, and then that was just going well. We did a couple of pop-ups in different spots, one in Lewisham, one in Peckham. They were by nature pop-ups, so they like ran their term, and we were then looking for the next stage. It's that thing where you feel like you've reached a threshold, so you're really looking for the next thing. So if you're beginning, I don't think you should be aiming straight away for a shop. It depends, everyone's different, but like I'd say the journey that we did was really good, because when we did open our first brick and mortar, everyone in the area knew about it, and it just meant we started with a bang. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Lovely. And we hear a lot about, you know, the death of the high street. No one's visiting local high streets, but you know, you're doing well. So what are your thoughts on like the future? Do you think it is about independent businesses just doing experiences? Because yours essentially is an experience rather than just, you know, going out for a pizza, isn't it? Do you think that's why you're successful?
Well, I mean, like, look, you've got friends, you've got a partner.
Yep.
Like, you know, at the end of the day, like, it might be about the food, but ultimately, like, how do we meet people? We go out of our house, we meet people. We don't just, like, you can't make babies by chatting to each other online. You can't make friends. You know, you can have your gaming buddies, but eventually you want to meet. And so I think it's like looking at it in the terms of like what's happened over the span of human history is people have always met. You know, that's why we're all here today. People met and eventually made other people. It's not all about, you know, the birds and the bees, but ultimately it's about like looking at life and the long scale of human history and accepting that there've always been places, third spaces where people want to meet. And if you kind of channel what you're doing around that, which we have, i.e. doing singles nights, doing book clubs, just doing other dinners where people can meet, then people start to think of it in that way and don't get so held up about like, oh, is it this kind of place? Is it a pizza place? Is it that? It's a bit more like, yeah. And that's also just that kind of thinking has channeled into the way we've like designed the place, you know, like lots of people when they arrive and they come into our place, they're like, it feels like I'm in someone's home. And that immediately calms people down, and like the dim lighting and the candles and the detail of everything just makes people get a sense. And, you know, it becomes a place that you want to go to because, you know, it's a great place. So I guess like, you know, you just have to think of things not by, I'm making a restaurant, the food is good. You kind of have to look a bit deeper into like, what do humans want now and what have humans always wanted? So that would be my answer.
That is a brilliant answer. I've never had
Thank
that
you.
answer from
Thank
what's
you.
the future of the high street. I love that. Big thanks to Vodafone Business for sponsoring this podcast. VHub from Vodafone Business has supported over 1 million SMEs, providing expert advice on a range of topics that matter to small business owners everywhere. Access VHub for a free one-to-one consultation with an expert advisor and get support tailored to your business. Book your free consultation with a VHub advisor today. Find more details at vodafone.co.uk/VHub. So shall we go on to the crowdfunding then? So you raised, was it just over 30 grand?
30 grand. I think it ended up at like 35 or something like that. But like the target was 30 grand.
Oh, great, yeah. So why, do you want to talk about that? Because again, that's the thing that a lot of people want to know. How do you do it? And it was Kickstarter you did it on?
Kickstarter,
So you did reward around that. So why do you think you were successful, and what advice would you give on making a success of crowdfunding?
I think like if you're going to do the next stage of the business, you have to, because it's such a big next stage, you have to like kind of announce it in as big a way as possible and do something as big as possible. And obviously it depends on what kind of business you are. You know, we're not like a big corporate business. We're kind of a community restaurant. So, you know, we could have done two things. We could have gone to some investors and be like, look, we're trying to get a restaurant. We don't quite have all the capital. Can you invest and we can get this restaurant? Or we can be like, you know what can we do to get everyone else involved, feel like they're part of it, be excited for it, and give them something back? And crowdfunding is literally that. So we kind of looked at similar businesses to us, like the Dusty Knuckle. Jacob and Max are quite chummy, so they chatted about it a bit. And then, so we kind of agreed, we're like, right, we're going to do it. We're going to do a crowdfunder. And it just gives a lot of energy for the next place. And then kind of getting into the crowdfunder, it's like, okay, so you're asking people for 30 grand. You know, obviously it's not one person is giving you 30 grand. It's like 400 people. But, you know, the point is each person is looking at you saying, I want 30 grand in total. What effort are you making to like achieve that? You have to show not only that like the reasons for it are like, you know, like make sense, but also you have to show that the effort you've made to kind of showcase those reasons, i.e. the video, is big. So we kind of asked for like video editors and producers, like, you know, kind of shopped around, saw a few, found one that got on really well with. It was a little bit of a superficial reason, but he was from Middlesbrough. My dad's from Middlesbrough. I'm a big Middlesbrough football fan.
Oh, there you go.
And I was just like, well, you know what, to be fair.
Got to
like,
look for connections.
Yeah, you know. And then we've been happily dating ever since. No, I'm joking. But, you know, it sounds superficial, but you have to have a good rapport with who's filming you, right? Because otherwise you won't really be yourself on camera. And they're really professional, really serious. So, yeah, we like kind of wrote a script, like figured out how we're going to like put all the things we're asking or rather offering people in a really like fun visual way that kind of showed, you know, that we're also serious, but we're also a bit silly, and it is fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously. Sounds contradictory, but you know, Not everything's easy to understand in life. But yeah, so basically we did a really good video and offered some, you know, genuinely useful prizes like, you know, free pizza voucher. Obviously you pay for that, but it just means that, you know, you're supporting and you're like, I'm going to get a pizza anyway when I get there, so I might as well do it. But then it would also be stuff like Christmas carols with your pizza delivery the following Christmas, which we did.
Wow.
And yeah, just things like that. And I think it was engaging enough and silly enough that people were like, I'm interested in this, but also the production quality was big enough that people are like, okay, I think these guys kind of like deserve, you know, a bit of money because they're kind of taking it seriously and they're treating us with respect in a way. So yeah.
So what about future funding? Do you think you'll do more crowdfunding, or do you think you'll go down the, you know, investor equity, giving up equity route?
Yeah, it kind of depends what our next step is, you know, like, like, cause some days we're terrified of investors because, you know, it's that weird thing where like you think you want to get to the next step, but you probably might look back on it and be like, those were the glory days because I was answering to no one, only my customers, which is like fine because, you know, like they're not as demanding as like a big scary investor. You know, they're not calling you up. They're kind of, you know, you might get an odd bad Google review or a little suggestion, but you know, yeah, it kind of depends what our next step is really. Like, you know, we want to do something that makes the business tick. We want to think outside the box. We don't just want to necessarily just chuck another bar D100 somewhere, even though it works. We want something that feels exciting and it feels like we're really delivering the most quality we can to the people who are like tuned into us. You know, like this might never happen, but like just to kind of give a gist of like the way we think, you know, like there's ideas of one day like getting some land and like putting up wine groves and building a little cottage, and that becomes like dinner for like the dinner for 100 country cottage that like everyone who's subscribed to us on the emails or like is a big customer gets a discount on, and like we might do dinners over there, or you know, whether it's like a pub that does like Bangladeshi food and British beers, you know, something just big and punchy and different, that's engaging to other people, feels like you're genuinely adding value to either London or the world, rather than just a kind of a boring formulaic, like just potentially 20th century mindset, if that makes
Becoming
sense.
like a chain of 50 pizzerias, like, you know, there's a lot of them, isn't there, I suppose?
Yeah, I remember, as I was saying to you, I listen to a lot of podcasts, which is why it's an honor to be on this one, you know, because it's kind of like I've probably been in the shower before, you know, pretending I'm on one. So you know, I was training for this moment. But I remember listening to a really good one with the co-founder of Dishoom, and he was saying, despite the fact each time they get a new place, the whole idea is go deeper, don't saturate, because it's really easy just to copy and paste it. But he's like, every single new one they get goes so much deeper into what Dishoom is than the last one. And I think when I heard that, I was like, I'm taking that.
Yeah.
And that will be the story of Dinner for 100. We won't just saturate and become meaningless. It's only going to get deeper.
Yeah, because your places are very different, aren't they? If you could, like you say, you compare your permanent, what's the pop up to your bar, to your residency in the pub. Those are three very different places.
Exactly. I mean, like Dinner for 100 is where we found our feet, like the location in Telly Hill. That's where we discovered our pizza dough recipe, which is very unique. And kind of where we came up with our top selling pizza, the MacGyver. The pop-up in Bloomsbury is where we discovered we do really cool square pizzas because we got a top deck electric oven.
Okay.
So we make amazing square pizzas with like slow cooked yellow datterini sauce and like little pepperonis on top. And it's super crispy, super delicious. And then the bar is where we were able to start playing around with drinks. So like our top selling drink is the lychee spritz. and that was the secret to that is raspberry liqueur.
Nice.
You think
So
it's just
hungry
going to
right
be, yeah. Well, we'll go on a date after this.
Like you're right. Like Dishoom, in terms of what you were saying about it's a place where people go to meet and chat. Dishoom, I've been to a couple, and they're very much that. You walk in, the staff are immediately very welcoming. They kind of interact with you, don't they? It's not just like, I remember the last one I went to, the waiter didn't write anything down. It was kind of in his head. And he gave us a free dessert, and he kind of said, oh, we made too many, but it was clear it was kind of a little, we were a big group. He wanted to give us something extra. So that is very much your philosophy, isn't it? I guess it's an experience.
You know, when you've had a meal like that, you leave and you feel bloody fantastic. You feel so good. And every time that happens to me, I just get reminded of, I'm like, I'm so lucky I'm able to do this, because, you know, to be able to offer that back to people, when that particular feeling, I can't find another time where I have the same feeling as I do when I walk out of a restaurant where I've had an amazing time. And it is so particular, because you essentially be massaged on every level, and you just feel great, and you've also caught up with someone that you care about in an environment that cares about you. I just think like it's really important, and no matter what happens, we'll keep doing it as a human race. And yeah, it's just a fun thing to play, to get involved with. And to be honest, like, I'm only able to really articulate it now, but like since I was 17 and I did my first waiting job, there was just an aura, there was like something glowing that just made me want to stay there, basically. Despite doing all these different things, going to university, trying to be in advertising, trying to be a presenter on a radio show at one point. There was something about restaurants that always brought me back. I'm just glad I'm able to do it. And, you know, I guess what we try and do is not only with the restaurants, but just take it further with our events, basically, and really try and push getting more and more people to meet each other, because when you meet someone that you connect with, it just changes your life. So, yeah.
Onto your marketing. So obviously you sort of said at the start, you were kind of posting in Facebook groups saying, come and buy our pizza. But obviously now, as you've got, you know, more physical places, I guess it's become a more strategic kind of marketing plan. And so you want to talk a bit about how you do your marketing and encourage people to buy your stuff?
I think like, well, I mean, I guess, you know, to anyone listening who is wanting some hot tips, the first thing I was told when we were setting it up was post on Instagram every day. It's slightly different now, but I do think at the beginning, go every day, because that's where you find your feet and figure out your formula. So by strategic, at the beginning, I was working out what the strategy was. You know, ultimately it's come and buy pizza. But like you're kind of posting, and in that you start discovering your tone of voice, like kind of how like, all these things, you know, what pictures, whether it's videos, how you just do, and you just eventually figure it out. I guess to come back to now, the way we do it is I run the Instagram, I do the website, and I also run the email marketing. And essentially, when we kicked off our events, I suddenly realized that we're gonna, you know, not by any kind of mastermind plan, but I was like, wow, lots of people want to come to our events. We should probably get their emails so we can email all of them. And then it can be as fair as possible a way of everyone getting the event notification at the same time. Because obviously Instagram, not everyone's on Instagram, but you might get an email notification on your phone. So it just started as that. And then suddenly we did more events, and suddenly we had 5,000 people on our email subscriber list. And I was like, whoa, like, you know, lots of pizzerias would dream of that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Of course, like, you know, to get into the mechanics, like people go into lots of pizzerias, put their email down, whatever. But I guess like our way of doing it, I guess is different. And so the people actually reading our emails is quite proportionately high. And it really kicked off when we started doing our singles nights, because we suddenly realized that although our dinners before were just general dinners, people really started to see them as an opportunity to meet people. And we thought, let's just make that a different series of dinners and just focus on that. And basically what we have today is Instagram, which I'm kind of posting on like now about 3 times a week.
Right.
Because I want every post to be as good as possible, and just not bore people, basically. But at the same time, you do want to grow. So we're kind of working on that one with lots of leafleting in all the restaurants. At the bill, you get a thing showing you what we do, what our events are. So that catches a lot of new people. We do collaborations with other kind of like, I guess, influencers who like come to our dinners, and we catch them there. And then the email marketing just seems to keep growing, and I'm not sure whether they're finding us from Instagram or whether they're seeing it on the leaflets or whether it's some of the posters that are dotted around in the restaurants.
It's kind of a bit, slightly more traditional, like email and print marketing. It still works, doesn't it? And I think if someone's given you their email address because they've been to a great event, they're bought in, aren't they? They haven't just given your email address to get on the Wi-Fi, which is often the reason you do it.
That's not, we don't take anyone's emails in any way. Like, do you want the Wi-Fi? By the way, click this, and like we'll send you. We don't do it like that. Who knows? I'm not ruling it out, but at the moment it's quite clear. It's like, do you want to come to our event? This is the way to do it. Yeah. And we just make sure we're bringing the best value in our events, making sure they're things that people genuinely want to go to. And then they'll be like, okay, I'll just pop in my email. And then, that also means that we can then, I'll send them emails about the events, but I might also be like, by the way, we're open on Bank Holiday Monday, or here's a recipe of the month, or these are our events, obviously. These are the specials of the month, stuff like that. And I remember actually, funny enough, in advertising school, there was a really good teacher called Mike, who's basically like, he was a creative in advertising and like, achieved millionaire status, and now just teaching young creatives in advertising. And he's like a new thinker, but also he's like, email will never die. That was his big thing. And it must have just kind of permeated my head eventually, because I wasn't thinking of it like that. But later down the line, I was like, it's funny, if Instagram goes tomorrow, we've got people.
That's true. You're right. That you've got their data. Yeah. If you lost Instagram, that's it. You've lost them, haven't you? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's kind of taught me to be a little bit less precious about Instagram, because in a way it is a bit fickle. Like, people follow people for a few months and then drift off, and like people see the videos on the explore page, not necessarily on their own feed. So like, I think it's important to like think about it as quality, not quantity. And like, everyone who signed up for our emails are all quality, because they're not kind of tuned out. They're all pretty tuned in. Unless they find the loves of their lives and they don't want to come to our singles events. But that's okay, because we've got more dinners.
There's always another dinner.
There's always another dinner. So yeah.
Brilliant. You've given so much advice, but to kind of bring it to a close, if you had to give one ultimate tip that other business owners can learn from your journey, what would it be?
Gosh, I can probably say too many things. You probably notice I'm a bit of a waffler, so I don't quite know what to say. But I think, when I look back and how we got to where we got to, a lot of it was like thinking hard, making sure we're like doing things right. But all that was really driven by a relentless pursuit. Like, don't get me wrong, we thought the right ideas and came up with the right stuff, or like tested a pizza and it ended up being our most popular pizza. But at the end of the day, it was really just driven by like this just let's just do it. And I began my managers meeting today by talking about the water buffalo in the plains of Africa, who, when they see a storm, they run towards the storm, not away from the storm, because they know if they run towards the storm will pass through them quicker. Whereas if they run away from the storm will carry with them longer. And that's the same in life. If you've got any problems or you're going through something that's tough, you just have to run at it and keep going, because eventually it will pass. And through doing that, you'll have learned something, you'll have achieved something, and you'll be better equipped for the next storm, and you'll be better equipped generally, i.e. your business will be stronger, your frame of mind will be stronger, you will be stronger. So I know it's a bit basic maybe, and it's not like a hack, but I don't think there are such things as hacks. It's ultimately just like making sure you get the work done and you work hard. And the hack will be, at the end of the day, you'll be like, wow, I've actually achieved my potential. I feel great, you know? So water buffalo, that's my tip.
I love that. First time water buffalo has been mentioned on this podcast.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. Jake, thank you so much. I've loved the story. We could have talked for ages, but I look forward to hearing what you do next. But
Thank you.
Big thanks for joining us on the Small Business Sessions.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You've been watching Enterprise Nation's Small Business Sessions podcast, powered by Business Connected and our partners Vodafone Business, Constant Contact, Dropbox and JP Morgan. If you've been inspired during this episode, head to enterprisenation.com/business connected to register for webinars and to access free business training. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.